Josh said we're launching this new series we've titled No Ordinary Day. And in this series, we want to ask you to examine your day, to examine your moments, and ask yourself, is Christ in it? Is Christ in every moment of every day? And then we want to ask you to examine the moments of your day to see what is the meaning in it. Because I think we can go through our days that are filled with meaning, filled with moments that Christ is there, and we can miss it. So I have this key idea on the screen. This is what we'll be talking about today. I have God is always forming us into new people. And not just through big, spectacular experiences, but in the countless ordinary moments of life every day. I think all of us go through life that are filled with moments, and we can forget that God is there. God made us to live our days that are filled with maybe what you might think are banal or mundane moments, but they're more than that. God is present. For example, maybe tomorrow morning your day will start with getting kids ready to school or getting yourself out the door, commuting. We go to work, we answer emails, we go to sales meetings, try to make a sale. We go shopping and buy things. We mow the lawn, do dishes. But God is there and we can miss it. I think sometimes we make the mistake of thinking, going through life, that there are sacred moments and secular moments, that there are holy and divine moments, and then we are jumping back and forth to secular moments. And I want to say, no, Christ is in all of that. We want to ask you to examine your 24-hour day in this series and look at how you're spending a day. Because how you spend a day for Jesus Christ really, isn't it, a picture of how you'll spend your life. And so we're over the next 6 weeks, we're going to look at an entire day. But today, we're starting with mornings. Today, we're starting with waking up. And I don't know about you, but when I wake up in the morning, it's a rude awakening, isn't it? I don't set an alarm. I usually roll out of bed around 5:30. But for me, I just kind of sit on the bed for a minute, on the edge of the bed, trying to get my bearing in life. You know, geez, what just happened the last 7 or 8 hours? Because don't you know what I'm talking? Some mornings you wake up and you don't know where you are. I think then you got a good night's sleep. But we all wake up the same, very human, raw, with messed up hair and bad breath. Just some of you, just a few people. But we have rumpled clothes, and we just wake up human, and we all start life in the very same spot. Whether you're Mother Teresa or a stay-at-home mom, whether you're a revolutionary or a college student or a tax attorney, we all start the day the same. The Bible, when you read it, has a lot to say about mornings. And if you want, look at Psalms with me. I have a couple of lines here, Psalm 118. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. And then Isaiah, in the morning, my spirit longs for you. Then we read Psalm 30, joy comes in the morning. I think God likes mornings. Well, after I've stumbled out of bed, I don't know about you, but I head straight to the kitchen to make a pot of coffee. And I can't function without coffee. This is, by the way, is Provision coffee that we have in our Grove coffee shop. It smells phenomenal. It's from Bolivia. Usually at home, I have free coffee from my son, who works at Starbucks, and he brings it home. But when I measure out my coffee, I don't know about you, but I'm very precise, not just because I know I want it to taste a certain way, but because I don't want to waste a bean. If a bean falls on the floor, I pick it up and I put it in the grinder, because I've been to Thailand with Paul Gunther and some of you from the Grove, and I've been out on the plantation where they pick the beans, they pick them by hand. And then not only that, they bring it back to the plantation and they wash them by hand. If you buy Peaberry coffee, I watch them take the beans out. That means there's 2 beans in 1 pod. They pull it out for a special blend. And that they pull out 1 bean at a time. And so coffee beans are precious. Don't waste them. Anyway, so then once I have them in here and it's measured right, I need to grind it. Now, for me right now, I have 2 sons at home. And so I go, and at 5:30, I know they're asleep still, and I don't want to wake them up, so I go in the backyard to grind it. But... And here's the thing. Now, I don't wake them up, but maybe my neighbors hear it. I'll be getting, HOA letters soon, but that's okay. But as I'm grinding, you see how loud it is? You see how the whole house would wake up? Anyway, so, but as I'm grinding it, you know what? I'm grateful. I feel that my sons are home, because when they're not home, I can make as much noise as I want, but I'm sad because they're not around. Anyway, so then I put it in this is my Ninja. Can I just say this is a precious possession of mine? And is that okay for a pastor to say that? What happened is our coffee maker broke about 2 months ago. And I had read about these, but they were like $285 for one. It's a Ninja station. And then I found it on Amazon for $66. I felt like I'd stole something. Thank you, Amazon. And all of you know what that's like. Once I've put the ground coffee in, then of course I add the water. And I tell you, as I'm making the coffee in the morning, for some reason, as I'm filling the water, I think about my friend like Felix, Pastor Felix in Haiti. And he and his wife, when we're with them in the morning, and we spent quite a few nights up there, he always makes coffee in the morning. But I think about him because water is precious in Haiti. In Haiti, where we go from Les Penez, you have to walk down this hill, a steep hill, a mile. You get to a spring that the whole community is sharing. And then the last time we were there with buckets to fill them up for the church people, the water stopped flowing and everybody had to leave with no water. Anyway, I started the coffee, and so I feel grateful for water that we can drink in Chandler and Gilbert. I don't know about you. In Africa, where I grew up, they take the water the night before from the swamps or the creek, and they set it just inside their door, and they let it settle all night. That way they can take their cup in the morning and get clean water off the top. So when I just put water in the coffee shop, I feel a little bit of gratitude. Well, finally, once it's brewed, I need to stop it a second here, hang on. I can pour myself a cup. And I don't know about you, but that first sip of coffee is precious, isn't it? I usually stand there and I'm looking out our back Arcadia doors, and we have a pretty good view from where we are, and I can see the sun rise. At 5:30 to 6, it's rising every morning. And when I take that, can I pause? I just need to pause and take a sip here. That is good. And I'm gonna share a little later, maybe. But I pause and I go, God, thank you. I feel gratitude. I think God gives us good things in life on purpose because he loves us. So it's okay to enjoy a cup of coffee maybe. But I have this verse on the screen, taste and see the Lord is good. I think there are our routines. We can look at coffee making as just a chore, as something to get through. But I want to pause a minute here and ask you to examine your morning routine, whether it's making coffee or making the bed or getting your kids ready for school. We can rush through those routines and think they're just a chore, a job to do. But I want you to pause and see that Christ is there. God made us to live a string of moments. Not only that, but those moments have meaning. I think for a lot of Christians, we grew up understanding or thinking that our faith was mainly what happened in our minds. That if we just believe the right things, profess the right things, then we were saved. And that's all true. Knowing and believing the right things is crucial. But we can miss that maybe the best picture of a godly life is a culmination of all the moments that we live all day long. You see what I'm saying? That all day long we have this opportunity to live for him, not just sometimes. One of the things that happens, I think, in my life, and hopefully with yours, that in these routines, like making coffee, it forces me to slow down and pause. And I have this opportunity to invite God into my day. And I can start the day in something as simple as making coffee. If you think about it, we all live life in patterns. There are a lot of things that we do in repetition every day. They almost become a ritual, or we could say a liturgy of sorts. And I want you to start seeing your morning routine maybe more as of a ritual or more of a liturgy than as a chore. Because these things that we do over and over again, it's just like the way God operates, isn't it? If you think about it, every morning he causes the sun to rise. And it may It's ready for all of us. But it may seem ordinary and banal, but the sun rising is spectacular, and then it sets. Every day it rises, every day it sets. It's the same with the tides. Every day the tide comes in and the tide goes out, and then he does it again. God is really good at doing the same things again and again and again. He puts moisture in the clouds, and it rains. He puts moisture in the clouds, and it rains again and again. But here's what's so good about that. That's how he treats us. He forgives us and he loves us again and again. He forgives us and he loves us. He forgives us and he loves us. Our routines, I think, remind us of the way that God works. Well, I'll move here next. Once I've made a cup of coffee and once I can function, I go and find a chair. I have a chair kind of like this in my house. This one's from Living Spaces. And I go and find a comfortable chair and I sit down. Now, maybe that's not the first thing that you do. I have a friend in California. His name is Tom. He lives in Carlsbad. Tom, he says his morning routine is every morning at 6 a.m., he walks outside and he jumps in his swimming pool. I said, it's 6 of them all winter. He says, yes, even in the winter months. And then he goes and he stands on a slack line and he says, that's where I meet God. I stand there for 15 minutes and I pray and meditate. Okay, so some of you can do that. I've chosen a chair. For some of you can choose a slack line. All the power to you on that. Now, as I sit down in the chair, for me, for a while, starting in 2007, I used to sit down in the chair and I would read the Bible and pray, but in 2007, something happened. You know what that was? The iPhone was invented, right? It came out in June 2007. How many of you picked up an iPhone in 2007? Well, just like 3 of you. I don't know where the rest of you are. We're in a cave. But in 2007, my routine changed. I would wake up and I would turn on the phone. And I would look at my text and my emails. I'd start checking social media. Facebook was thriving then, and even people under the age of 50 were using Facebook. And I would spend my first hours looking at social media, reading the news, and being entertained. And after 6 or 7 months of that, I realized that's not how I want to start my day. And so I started using the moon setting, right? And I realized that from 5:30 to 7:30, those are precious hours. I want that time. Someone's got a phone ringing. I want that time with my family. I want that time to pray. I want that time to read the Bible. That's the time that I write. That's the time that I study. In fact, for the last week, I've been journaling. Remember last week we started journaling, and I write down the things that I'm grateful for. But you see, we can either start our day looking for entertainment and information, or we can start our day with Christ. And so let me read to you what Jesus did early in the morning. We read this. This is Mark chapter 1, verse 35. We read, it was very early in the morning and still dark. And Jesus got up and he left the house and he went to a place and he found a comfortable chair. And there he could be alone. And there he prayed. So even Christ, a part of the Trinity, he finds a quiet place to meet God. And so my question to you is, as you start your day, where do you pause to invite Christ into your day? Where do you pause to meet God? Now, he's present through all the moments, but I think we have to be intentional as well. Part of my invitation this morning in simply saying, whether it's a coffee or something else, but pausing, what it does to meet God, it encodes in our routine. It etches in our behavior and in our minds this thing, this moment, to realize and recognize that God is here. Well, after I've spent some time in the chair and had several cups of coffee, then I make my way to the shower. And so we put I'm going to leave our coffee there. We put a shower head. I don't know if you can tell, but that's the biggest shower head known to humankind and Home Depot that we could find. And so we have a shower here. The Bible has a lot to say about they usually say baths or bathing in a river. We'll say shower. Most of us take showers. But we read in the Bible in the Old Testament, like Naaman wanted God to cleanse him. And so he was told to take a bath in a river. Jesus, when he healed people, he would have them go and wash and then come back. Washing, or we would say showering, for the Jewish people, taking water physically and washing their hands or washing their bodies, they had ceremonial rituals that they would go through. It had much meaning because it represented the cleansing and the washing that was happening in their soul. Let me read to you from Psalm 51:7. There's quite a few verses we could read. I'll just read this one. Cleanse me with hyssop, and I will be clean. Wash me, and I will be whiter than snow. Washing in the Bible always represented, physical washing always represented the spiritual cleansing that was happening on the inside. So I thought this recently. Maybe when we take a shower, it should remind us of our baptism. If you think about it, when Jesus was baptized, he came up out of the water just like all of us, just the same way as all of us. When he came up out of the water, he was soaking wet. His hair was a mess. The water was in his eyes. He's looking for a towel to wipe his eyes. And then we read that a dove landed on him. So I brought some Dove shampoo here. I'm just saying, I can't make this stuff up, all right? But I started to think, maybe when we take a shower, it's a reminder of what God does in our baptism. And so tomorrow when you step into the shower, I want you to remember your baptism. And maybe it's time in the morning for you to say, God, forgive me of my sins. Maybe you need to say, God, yesterday, I did the worst things. I disappointed you in the worst ways. Will you forgive me? And as that shower, as that water pours over you, remember your baptism. Remember that you are washed clean. And remember this, that with every new morning as you start the day and you take your shower, his grace is there to wash you again. Every morning is your opportunity to start over with God. It's a new day. You're washed clean. So tomorrow as you take your shower, remember your baptism. From the shower, when I get out, I make my way over to the sink, and I think a lot of people do that. And we all need to go there and to brush our teeth, don't we? And so I have a toothbrush here this morning. And as I'm grabbing the toothbrush, I can't help but think of a guy that I knew years ago in California. We're talking one afternoon, and he says this to me. He says, Palmer, I haven't brushed my teeth in 5 years. I took a step back. I was like, what? He said, oh, yeah. He says, I'm so busy. I just don't have time to. It's such a hassle. He was unemployed at the time. And that's true. Then this is true. I'm not making this up. A few months later, he's sentenced to 11 years in jail. So I'm just saying there might be a connection. He's out now. There might be a connection between brushing your teeth and going to prison. I don't know. I could be wrong on this. But I think the toothbrush, when we brush our teeth in the morning, maybe you think, well, that's just a hassle. That's just a pain in the neck. I better do it so I don't offend my coworkers. And so you brush your teeth, and you don't want to go to jail. But it's just body maintenance, right? Our bodies, if you think about it, they require a lot of maintenance, don't they? We do our best to push off aging and to keep our bodies from atrophying. It takes all kinds of work: cutting, crimping, clipping. What else? Waxing, I don't know what that is, but I've heard about waxing. What else? All these things that we do to keep our bodies healthy. Now, here's the thing. It used to be, for modern Christianity, the Christianity I grew up on, whenever anyone or preachers talked about our bodies, it was always talking about it in the worst way. Like your body is a source of sin. Your body is the sins of the flesh, and one day it's going to be dead, and that'll be the best thing ever. And can I just say this? Historically, or from Scripture, when you listen to Orthodox Christians talk about the body, there's much reverence for our bodies. Our bodies, listen to this. This is 1 Corinthians 6, verse 19. Your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. So can I say, take good care of your body. Floss and brush your teeth. Doing that maintenance is very biblical. There's nothing wrong with your body. Your body is good, and it's a gift from God. Scripture says it was wonderfully made. And so as you're doing maintenance, like brushing your teeth, see that as a holy moment, a divine moment. God is present even in that moment. As I stand here, I'm looking in a mirror. Sorry to everybody back here about the mirror, but there's a mirror here. And the Bible talks about mirrors. And if you want, you can look at it with me. One is Peter. He writes in 1 Peter 3, verse 4, he says, "Don't be concerned about your outward beauty, of fancy hairstyles, expensive jewelry, or beautiful clothes. You should clothe yourself instead with the beauty that comes from within, that is so precious to God." As I think about the mirror, I think about Tish. She's an Anglican priest, Tish Warren. Tish writes about mirrors and house blessings. Tish says that when she first became a priest, she wanted to learn how to do a house blessing, and so she went with an older, wiser priest and followed him around a house. And she said that this wise man went room to room praying a blessing over the different rooms in the house. But then they got to the bathroom, and she says, I was thinking, what do you do with a bathroom? And so she says, but the bathroom, she's learned later, is a very interesting place to bless, because first, you have to cram everyone into this small place. She said, then everyone gets really quiet. Like, what are you going to say now about the bathroom? But she says this old, wise priest, he took some oil, and he put it on the corners of the mirror. And then he prayed a blessing over the mirror. And he prayed this. He prayed, may your sons and your daughters, as they look into this mirror, may they see every morning that they are made in the image of God. May they see that they are beautiful and good. May they not see the images that our society tries to curse them with. May they not be obsessed with their flaws that friends who are mean point out to them. But when your sons and your daughters look into the mirror, may they see the best that God has for them. May they see their beauty. May they see that they are made in the image of God. That prayer is for your sons and daughters when they look in the mirror. When you look in the mirror, when you look in tomorrow morning and you're just trying to get the last piece of hair straight, I know that. But would you pause and would you look at your own reflection in the mirror? And when you look in the mirror, would you be reminded that you are a daughter of God, that you are a son of God. And Scripture says you are made in His image. It doesn't matter what size you wear. It doesn't matter what color of skin you are. You are beautiful and righteous and made in the divine image of God. We can go through life just seeing the worst things about us in the mirror, but that's not you. That's what other people are saying about you. The truth about you is that you are beautifully, wonderfully made in the image of God. Thank you. We forget that, don't we? Well, the last thing that I do before running out the door, and the last thing that your kids need, is breakfast. And so I've come over here this morning, and we're gonna make some cinnamon vanilla French toast, all right? Why? Because cinnamon vanilla French toast is simply awesome. I had only had French toast until I got married. And then my wife, she threw in some cinnamon and vanilla, and I was like, what? And I had never had that before. I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know it was legal. But here's the thing. As I put the bread and the egg and the cinnamon and vanilla, I want you to think about the bread, because Jesus makes the most stunning observation about bread. He says, I am the bread of life, doesn't he? He says, I am life. Bread for the Hebrew people had so much symbolism in it. Bread was a powerful thing. For the Hebrew people, bread represented blessing and life. Like if you had bread to eat in the morning, you were the most blessed person out there. We take bread for granted. When they were walking through the desert, there was no bread, so God gave them manna. Do you know what they called the manna? Bread from heaven. And do you know what's true about the manna is God only gave them enough manna for one day. Because why? Because He wanted them every morning to wake up and realize, I need God again today. So when you look at bread, French toast, may it remind you that today I need God. Today I need Christ in my life. There's something else that the Hebrew people used to talk about when they talk about bread. Moses, we read this in Exodus 34, God tells Moses, take 12 loaves of bread to represent the 12 tribes and put them on a table in the tabernacle, in the temple. Do you know what the Hebrew people call this bread in the temple? They call it the bread of the presence. Wow. So every time you take a bite of French toast or a bite of breakfast, may it remind you of the presence of God. Isn't that good? When Jesus, like I said, when he came, he started talking about bread, and he was the bread of life. And he says, this bread, my bread is for you. So look at this with me. It's a great moment that we have with him. John chapter 6, verse 32, he says, the real significance of that scripture is not that Moses gave you bread from heaven, but that my Father is right now offering you bread from heaven, the real bread. The bread of God came down out of heaven and is giving life to the world. He's come down out of heaven. May bread remind you that Jesus Christ came for you. When Jesus was having his last meal with his friends, I forgot to spray the Spam on there. This is gonna stick. All right. I'm better than this. I'm better than that. I can tell you, we're gonna spray in between it. I don't know what it's gonna taste like, but I'm missing the French toast, all right? But when Jesus, at his last meal, you remember this? He takes some bread and he says to his friends, he says, take and eat. But when they eat the bread, what does he say next? He says, when you eat the bread, remember me. So every time you eat breakfast, can I invite you to remember that Christ is present, that he is here. All right, we've got some amazing looking French toast cooking. You can't see it from where you are, but I have two friends I'm gonna invite up. Can I have the two Westbrook kids come up right now? Come on up, Ridley and Ella, come on up and join me. They said they would have French toast with us this morning. We're gonna do that. All right, grab a seat. Help me clear this off here. There we go. Let's get this stuff out of your way. So guys, have a seat. I don't know what happens in your house, but thank you, Ridley. Awesome. There you go. Right there's good. But when our sons were growing up, then whoever was making breakfast, whether it was me or whether it was Veronica, our kids would sit there. And you had them like they were captive waiting for the food to come. They couldn't go anywhere. So I know you could, you're welcome. And thank you for coming up. And so as they're sitting there, you have a chance to ask them about their day. And so we're just gonna check in real quick. So tell us real quick, what grade are you in? Okay. And say your name again for everybody. Ella. Ella, what's your teacher's name?
I have two.
You have two. Let's hear both of them.
Miss Hammond and Miss Cote.
Okay, Hammond. Has it been a good year so far?
Yeah.
Yes, I forgot I had a mic. And how about you, bud? Now tomorrow, it's Monday morning. Any assignments left that need to get done tonight?
I don't know.
You don't? That's a good way to live life. Can I just say, I want to live like this. What's your favorite subject so far this year? What's your teacher's name?
Mrs. Rashadi.
Rashadi, good. What school are you at?
Bridges.
Bridges is good. I've heard Bridges is a great school. All right, you remember what's due tomorrow yet? No, nothing. All right. It's probably a big, final exam. I'm just going to warn you with that. All right. So here's the thing. We're just making breakfast. But I want to remind you that when your kids are with you, these aren't mine. I wish they were small enough to sit here. But that Christ is present. He is there. And that moment is holy. By the way, I brought some powdered sugar. My wife introduced me to this on French toast. I said, we already have syrup. I said, why do we need powdered sugar? She says, because it makes you happy. And so we're just gonna put piles of powdered sugar on here because it makes us happy. And then we have some maple syrup from Vermont or Costco, one of the two. And I think I need to leave this with you. You need more than that. That's not enough. All right, here's what we're gonna do, everybody. Well, let me say this first. Jesus said, I am the bread of life. And so every day when you eat breakfast, and maybe you eat breakfast with your kids, can you remember that He is the bread of life for that day? He fills your life with hope and strength and love and joy for that day. So I don't know what's ahead of you tomorrow on Monday, but as you eat breakfast, say, God, fill me with strength. You know, as you take a bite of food, it's a picture of Him in your life. It really is, especially bread. If you need strength for a meeting, strength for a job interview, maybe you need strength for an exam, maybe you need strength for a test, and say, God, today, give me that strength.